G'day guys, welcome back to another tipping video on the channel. Today I'll be going through my round 2 predictions. First I'll be going over what occurred in round 1 and my correct tips. Let's get straight into it. With the first game of the season resulting in an unbelievable draw between Richmond and Carlton. Absolutely amazing. I was gonna do some videos on it, but I decided not to. Absolutely amazing game. I think Carlton should have won the game, in my opinion. Richmond were quite lucky. Late goal clutched by Tom Lynch. Did very, very well, Richmond, to get back into that game. I think Carlton controlled definitely the first half, but still managed to drop the game. Of course, I did get my tip correct because that's how SBN works with a draw. Because I tipped Richmond, I'm technically counting that as a loss to me, really, because Carlton should have won, and I absolutely agree with the article that came out after the game. It felt more like a Carlton loss, really. My big call was Hopper and Taranto to combine for 65 or more disposals and 3 or more goals on debut. This obviously didn't happen due to it being quite low scoring. Taranto had 2 or 3 shots on goal that all went out in the full, and it was such a low scoring game. Everyone had opportunities, and Jacob Hopper, I think, got like 3 touches in the second half. Not good. That prediction. Then we got Geelong versus Collingwood. It was a great win by Collingwood. Amazing Friday night blockbuster. Definitely one of the games of the round. I think Collingwood, probably a bit of an upset, really. I don't think too much people would have tipped the Pies. Geelong controlled most of the game, especially the first half, even bits of the third term, but I feel like late in the third term, the momentum shifted our way, and it continued through the last term, which was great to see. Also good to see Collingwood not win by under a goal or under 2 goals like last season, getting a bit more of a consistent win. Amazing. De Goey was amazing. I feel like Mason Cox played his role really, really well. Darcy Moore was influential. And for Geelong, I really, really liked Asava Radagalia's game. He was absolutely dominant, especially in the first half and in that first quarter especially. Obviously, it was a little bit harder when Tom Stewart went out, and now De Koning's being monitored, so that could be bad for their season. I tipped Geelong, so not quite backing in my side there. Probably should have done. My big call was 25 or more goals were combined in the game. I was predicting to be a very, very high-scoring game. I'm very, very happy with that tip. The first one correct of the season. Next, we got North Melbourne versus West Coast. Clarko managed to get a win in his debut game. It was a thrilling game to see. One of my favourite games of the round. I was certainly feeling for North Melbourne because while I was watching the game, the atmosphere was absolutely amazing, and I've never seen North fans getting up for their team ever like that before, or not in a very, very, very long time. The atmosphere was amazing, and I had a friend who went and said the atmosphere there was quite good too. It was a pretty good game. West Coast, of course, came back late. I feel like Liam Ryan really, really led the way for them. He certainly is their X Factor player. But of course lost, and now Adam Simpson's being talked about being sacked. Not good. I tipped North though, so another correct tip. My big call was North to come back from behind in the last 10 minutes and win the game, and that obviously was a fail because they led for most of the last term. I think they led for all of it, maybe. I'm not sure. Anyway, then the next game saw Port Adelaide take off arguably the upset of the round, and the highest score of the round too, and easily the most impressive, making my prediction of them coming bottom 5, I think it was, really, really awful. They won by 54 points. They absolutely embarrassed Brisbane. Got a win in front of their home deck. They were absolutely amazing. I'm not too sure what Brisbane are going to be doing after that, but yeah, they certainly need a big, big response from that horror loss. Obviously, I did tip Brisbane, so that is an incorrect tip there. My big call was Lockie Neal to get 115 or more fantasy points, and that was a fail. Brisbane's midfield just couldn't get their hands on it, really. And then the D's and the Dogs at the G. Bit of a bit of a smashing really in the end. I feel like it was quite an even game for 3 quarters, and then the D's pulled away late. I really liked a few Demons games. Cozzy Pickett was easily best on for me. Clayton Oliver was brilliant too, as you would expect. I really like Kane Chandler in his third, I think, season now. Max Gorn was dominant. And yeah, in the absence of Viney, I feel like a few other midfielders stepped up. Obviously, they had them big injuries and everyone was questioning them. And the Dogs, of course, with their tall forward line, which I feel like was a bit of a fail. But Rory Lobb is injured for this game and he will not take on the Saints. Bevo has ruled him out. So Rory Lobb will not be taking on the Saints, which means he'll be a smaller forward line. Obviously, they don't quite have the exact smalls they want with Cody Waitman and Arthur Jones, out of the side. So, yeah, not perfect for them. So I've got a bit of an injury concern for both. But Gorn and Grundy was my big call to combine for 5 or more goals and 65 or more hitouts, and that was a fail. I didn't quite get the goals for me. Didn't even have to check the hitouts. Probably did though. And then Gold Coast versus Sydney. This was a very tough game to watch. Because I tipped the Suns. I tipped them by 2 goals and Sydney flogged them. They should have won it by more, really. Absolutely embarrassing for the Suns in front of their home deck. It was really hard for me to watch that game, especially seeing I tipped the Suns, and my awful, atrocious big call of Ben King and Mario Chol to combine for 5 or more goals. I reckon Chol had under 5 disposals, and King kicked 1 late, but absolutely atrocious from Gold Coast. They need a massive response, and Sydney just showed all their doubters wrong after last year's grand final heartbreak. And then moving on to the Sunday, GWS versus Adelaide. What an upset this was. I'm actually made a bet about this, saying if GWS win, I'd bloody tip my water bottle on my head. I haven't done it yet, but I keep on forgetting, but I'll probably have to do it soon anyway. But just shows you, don't make bets, because especially not round 1 too, because upsets can happen, and the Giants certainly upset the Crows here. And the first half, Crows dominated. Second half, Giants dominated. That's really what I got from that. Injury concerns for GWS too, with Perryman subbed out of the game early with a hamstring. Obviously a massive loss. They already lost Taranto and Hopper. And then you go and lose Lockie Whitfield and Kelly due to concussion. My goodness. Their midfield next week is going to be Green, Callaghan, Callum Ward. I can't really think of any other midfielders, but I reckon there'll be a few debuting next week as they take on the Eagles at Optus. But yeah, obviously injury concerns. Linkalia also was late withdrawal too, and Adelaide Shane McAdam got suspended. Also same with Cozzy Pickett and Buddy. I don't know if he's going to argue it in the tribunal yet. My big call is for Adelaide to have 5 or more players for 2 or more goals, and only 3 players had this in Rashili Rankin, who easily could have kicked 8 or 9. He was very inaccurate. And of course, Fogarty, sorry. I think Tex did it. Also, I want to mention with GWS, I feel like Toby Green definitely led the way in this win for them. He was instrumental in their big win. Speaking of big wins, Essendon sitting on top of the ladder currently. Who would have thought? Me. I tipped this just to let the Dons fans know. 59-point win in the end, it was. I did tip them by 18. Okay, that was quite not the best, but they still obviously won. And even without Peter Wright, I was thinking about maybe changing my tip after I heard Peter Wright done his shoulder, and now he's done it to 6 weeks, I think, or 6 to 8 weeks. Bad blow for the Bombers. And of course, Hawthorn having quite a young side. I feel like Day, Newcomb, even Warple, Dylan Moore, a lot resting on their shoulders in this game. They all had moments but couldn't outrun the Bombers, who Will Setterfield impressed in his first game. Parish Merritt doing what they do best. Great to see Tipper kicking a goal back on his return as tactical sub. I do like this tactical sub move. Definitely better than the medical sub. I think we can all agree. My big calls for Essendon to kick 5 goals in the last quarter, and that was correct. I think they kicked 5 goals in every quarter except the first. So, yeah, not much of a big call in the end. And they go ahead and do that, and then arguably, again, one of the upsets of the round, just like Port Adelaide. Who would have thought St Kilda getting up over the Dockers? It was the round of the new coaches, that's for sure. Ross the Boss getting up against his former team, the Saints. Won it by 15 points. Obviously, I tipped Freo, and I tipped him convincingly. So this was arguably my worst call of the round, or the Brisbane one, of course. But I was not expecting this from the Saints. Look at their injury list. Billings, Membry, who ended up being out. He was a possible chance of playing, but he ended up being out. Caulfield, King, Windhager, Jones. So many players were out, and now they've even got even more injury news, which is, of course, a negative from this win, in Jack Bytel getting an infected cut or something like that. Anyway, it's going to rule him out for this game against the Dogs, and Jimmy Webster obviously being subbed out of the game. But yeah, great win from the Saints. Sorry, I feel like they dominated this game. Freo, obviously, they need a big response, expecting it too against North Melbourne. Their midfield was beaten. Their forward line, well, it's just one of the worst in the competition, and I can nearly see them dropping out of the 8 from last season. Now the Dockers, it's just terrible. My big call was Saints to have 15 or less scoring shots, and they had 17. I was so close. I can't believe it. And they were the winning side too, which just shows you. I think Freo had 17 as well, but they just missed their chances. Anyway, got 4 out of 9 tips and 2 out of 9 for my big call. So yeah, not getting free, which is obviously what you'd want. So yeah, not great. Hopefully I can respond from that. I technically got 3 tips though. The draw doesn't count, honestly. I tipped Richmond. Carlton should have won the game. To me, it doesn't count. Anyway, let's get into round 2 now. Big game opening up in a few nights' time. It's Carlton versus Geelong at the G. Should be a big game. Obviously, Carlton fresh off a draw, and Geelong fresh off a very surprising loss to Collingwood. And they're gonna need to respond too. And because all their defenders, well, not all, Stewart's out. I think Connor Jasny might be back though, but still, they've got defensive issues basically is what I'm trying to say, Geelong. And because of it, I think Carlton will win by 4 points in an absolute thriller. My big call, mckay and curnow to combine for 8 or more goals. I can actually see this not being a big call because I think they will get this done so easily. If they don't get it, I'll be quite pissed off. Then we got Brisbane versus Melbourne on the Friday night, some Friday night footy. Brisbane need a massive response in this game, and in front of their home crowd, I think they will be quite good. I don't think they'll be amazing, but I think they'll be quite good, definitely better than Port Adelaide, expecting a big response, obviously. And Melbourne with players back, Bailey Fritsch is a test. I think Salem is definitely back. Stephen May should be back from what I'm hearing, and Jack Viney, I think, is a lock. So I think with the Dees players returning and Brisbane fresh off a loss, I think Melbourne can win this game by 14 points. They've also got a very good record against Brisbane too, I might add, in recent years. My big call, Ashcroft to get 25 or more disposals. He was awful against Port Adelaide, expecting a big response from him. Now, Collingwood versus Port Adelaide. Obviously, the Pies playing their first Saturday game. The Pies fresh off a win, and Port fresh off a win. A little bit nervous, to be honest. Certainly wasn't expecting this at the start of the season to be feeling nervous about this Port game. But I certainly think Port can challenge us and definitely take it up to us. And they're fresh off a massive win. Horn Francis, he looked brilliant. Junior Rioli too. Obviously, maybe Boak back too for them should help. Wines, Butters, and Burn Jones were impressive. Lear looked back to his All-Australian form from 2021. So did Dixon. Look out the power could be a real deal this season, and I'm definitely regretting tipping them to come 14th, that's for sure. But you got to back in your own side at home. I think DeGoey can have another big game. Pies by 25 points. I'm backing us in by quite a bit. Obviously, I don't think he'll be a thriller. And my big call, Pies to kick 12 first quarter goal. 12 first half goals. First quarter. That's, yeah, I'll be definitely wondering why I'd be tipping that. 12 first half goals. Sorry, I think we can get that. Maybe it's a pretty big call, but I reckon Port will come back in the second half. And then Adelaide versus Richmond as well on the Saturday. Obviously, Richmond fresh off a draw and Adelaide fresh off a shocking loss. Expecting a response at home from the Crows. And yeah, the Tigers, of course. Just being such a good team, I'm sure they'll bounce back. I think I'm going to have to go the Tigers here just by 7 points. My big call, a combined of 165 plus points is scored between the two teams. I reckon it'll be high scoring, basically. And then on the Saturday night, we've got two pretty interesting games. That's for sure. We've got Western Bulldogs versus St Kilda and Fremantle versus North Melbourne. Bulldogs probably expecting a big response from them and Freo after their losses. Wasn't expecting the Dogs to be flogged by that much, and I certainly wasn't expecting Freo to lose to the Saints. Then again, it was away, but they've got forward line issues, expecting a massive amount of changes from Justin Longmuir's side this week. But yeah, I'm going to go the Dogs. I'm going to back them in as much as I'd love the Saints to win and I'd love to see another upset. I think the Dogs can win just by 6 points. My big call, Dogs to kick the first 3 goals of the game. I definitely think the Saints will be the better side after the first quarter, though. And then for North and Freo, I'm going to go Freo by 18 points. Not a smashing. I reckon North can play very, very well. Obviously, Harry Sheezel was amazing on debut. And I think Big Goldie returns for Jerry, who was dominating before being subbed out of the game. My big call, this is a painful one if you're a North fan. North to go goalless in any quarter. Yeah, they'll certainly be letting me know about that. But yeah, I just reckon North will go goalless in any quarter for this game. I reckon Freo's defence will be too good on the day in a low-scoring affair. Now, Sydney versus Hawthorn, the first of the Sunday games. Yeah, I won't take long with this, Hawthorn fans. Don't worry, I'll have it wrapped up in a sec. Basically, Hawthorn was shit. Basically, they're going to be the bottom side now this season, you'd probably expect. And Sydney, well, they just showed all their doubters wrong against the Suns. Warner was absolutely amazing. Of course, Buddy's suspension does hurt him, but because it's against Hawthorn, it's not going to bother them any bit. I think the Swans win this game by 36 points. My big call, Hawthorn to lead at any time of the game in the second half. That is a big call. That's going to get the Hawks fans pumped. That's for sure. And then the Bombers taking on the Suns. This would be another interesting game, I reckon. Another one where I reckon a team will have quite dominance, but maybe not be so efficient on scoring. I mean, we saw a lot of that in the first round, especially from Port Adelaide. Even Essendon, you could argue themselves, they missed a few chances. Fremantle missed chances. Even North missed a few bad ones at times. And yeah, of course, the Swans missed some too. But of course, in this game, I think the Suns need a response. Do they get it against the Dons? I think they do, but I still don't have enough to convince me for them to win this game. Sorry, and it's just the Suns. They're coming off really, really poor form against GWS in the practice game, of course, and now the Swans. being flogged at home. I think the Bombers, I'm going to back them in to win this game by 23 points. My big call, Ben King to kick 4 or more goals. I reckon he'll have a day out. This time, fingers crossed. Backing in Ben King, obviously, with these big calls to start the season. And then the final game of the round, arguably the most boring and the hardest to predict, West Coast versus GWS. It's literally a coin flip. Like, honestly, the start of the season probably would have gone West Coast. I'm slightly leaning on GWS now. I'm probably going to go GWS by 14 points in this game. I think West Coast definitely do need a response. Certainly in the next 2 months, or Simpson will get sacked. It's just that simple. I think he will get sacked. Not after this game, that's for sure, but after maybe a few more. Anyway, GWS by 14. I reckon they'll win it just. But this is a pretty big call. Both sides to score over 100 points. We saw it happen with Collingwood Geelong, and I reckon it can happen with these two teams. I just think both teams will throw their defence away and just go for goals, and yeah, there'll be heaps of goals, that's for sure. So yeah, I really, really hope you enjoyed. I certainly did enjoy the opening round. Hopefully round 2 can be just as big, and yeah, hopefully the Pies can get up against Port Adelaide. I hope you enjoyed the tipping video, and stay tuned for next week's video.